There's no more control of the parents on what influences their kids are being subjected to. So, the challenge for parents is how to reorient their kids, before their children become addicted to that digital environment of developing relationships, and coming back to the family and community environment of developing relationships. That's the challenge that we have today. And unless we can meet that challenge in a creative way, like there are communities, like the Hasidic Jewish communities in New York and in Israel, they absolutely forbid, they will not let one kid enter their school if the child or the family has a computer in their house. They won't. It's part of their entrance requirement. If a family has a computer in the house, they reject the child from entering their school. But that's a radical approach. But they're very radical about that, because they know the detrimental effect on the child if they have access to the internet and television and anything that's outside of the family and community. They reject. But there are other ways, based on competition, that one can win the battle for the mind of your child. And I think, now that I just summarized that, let's get some opinions. Do you think this is an issue? What do you think? Yes? Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. So therefore, this is a real issue, and we have to come up with creative ways to win the competition. It is a competition for the mind of your child. That's what we're dealing with. And everything in materialistic society is based on competition. You feel that pressure at work, you feel that pressure in social relationships, in any type of hierarchical organization, and all organizations are hierarchical. You feel that competition. Okay, so now, where did this competition come from? It's the competition ultimately between atheism and God-oriented beliefs. The atheists have decided, at a certain point, that they're going to defeat belief in God, and they're going to use every means possible. And the best means possible is infiltrating the education system and using sophisticated means to get to the mind of your child, even though the child is living in your house. Okay, so let's talk now. The second point is to talk about what is binary technology. Binary technology, since 1950s, it has exploded as the main orientation of science and communication. Binary technology is an infinite series of 10, 10, 10, right? And then you can program information and so many things using that technology. But binary technology, by its nature, is distracting, or let's say it's a type of dualism that can attract the mind and just take it on a voyage. So when you go on the internet, you are bombarded with this binary technology. You go and see one thing, and it leads you to something else, then it leads you to something else, then it leads you to something else, and then you can end up spending hours and hours, years of your life, just going around here and there. Now, some people say, no, my searches on the internet are focused. But actually, every web page is designed, especially news web pages and others, to catch your attention. I mean, look at Google. Google has a sidebar in which tremendous amount of psychological study has taken place. So you go to see one subject, and then Google presents related subjects that can attract your mind, and then you click on them, and that takes you to other related subjects. So the whole environment of binary technology is to distract your mind. So one of the most, let's say, important characteristics of a successful person is their ability to focus on a goal and eliminate everything that distracts that person from reaching the goal, and accept everything that helps them reach the goal. Those are the type of people that usually succeed in the business world, or in academics, or in anything. Right? So because of the motivation to succeed in a particular achievement of a goal, they learn the value of eliminating everything that will distract them and accepting only those things that will further their goal. But not everybody has that ability. That's why you have very high achievers that have understood that, and other people, they just go with the flow. They don't realize how binary technology is affecting them. The Vedic environment is based on monary technology, and that's sort of encapsulated by the word Om. Every mantra in the Vedic literature begins with Om. Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Now Om has multifaceted meanings, but ultimately the main meaning of the word Om is a indirectly addressing God, and the main meaning of the word Om is yes, Krishna. Meaning, yes, I will do what you want me to do. And this is in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna tells Krishna, Nasta mohas mitir labbat tat prasadat mayuchyata stitosmi gata sandeha karisya vachanam tava. He said, now Krishna, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, my moha, my illusion is finished, and I can remember who I actually am. I'm your eternal servant. And this is your prasad, tat prasadat mayuchyata, O infallible one, O Krishna. This is your special mercy on me. Stitosmi gata sandeha. Now I'm situated in my right position as your eternal servant. I no longer have any doubts. Gata sandeha. Karisya vachanam tava. Whatever you tell me, that's what I'm going to do. So therefore, the foundational meaning of the word Om is Karisya Vachanam Tava. Whatever you say, Krishna, that's what I'm going to do. And that is the journey of Arjuna from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, where he rejects following Krishna's order, and in the end he comes to the conclusion, whatever Krishna says, that's what I'm going to do. Right. So in the same way, every parent wants the child to listen to what they say. And every parent experiences that as the child grows up and gets influenced by outside forces, gradually they may come to the conclusion that I don't want to listen to my parents anymore. I just do things my own way. And then if that happens, let's say, not all children will do that, but a majority of children will do that, and it's very disconcerting for the parents to see that, where they no longer have any influence over the child. So, and that can happen very early on, or it can happen a little later on. But when it happens, it's a shock, because the parents never expected that something like that would happen. And this is because of being influenced by outside forces. So, the Vedic tradition teaches children, right from the earliest age, to be able to focus their mind on the goal of life. The goal of life, if the parents misunderstand the goal of life, they cannot teach their children. And then the children will shop around on the marketplace, let's say, with their smartphone or the internet to try and figure out what the goal of life is. And that's a catastrophe. What is the goal of life? According to which school of philosophy you follow, it can vary. In the impersonalist school, the goal of life is mukti, liberation. But in the personalist school, the Vaishnava school of philosophy, the goal of life is developing pure love for Krishna, manifested through devotion, uninterrupted devotion to the Lord. So, does this sound strange? Well, it sounds strange to materialistic people. They say, no, the goal of life is to enjoy life. You just live once, and the more you can enjoy, that's the goal of life. So here you have the materialistic point of view, the impersonalist point of view, and you have the Vaishnava point of view. All right. Now, although you might say the impersonalist point of view and the Vaishnava point of view seem to coincide more than the materialistic point of view, they don't. The desire for liberation is materialistic. It's not spiritual. Therefore, if your orientation is the Vaishnava point of view for the goal of life, then you have to be aware of that. And that's what you have to communicate to your child. And the child, if they are seeking the materialistic point of view, it's almost impossible to control their mind. If they have imbibed that point of view by going to school, public school, it's almost impossible to convince them that it's wrong. Therefore, to rear children toward the Vaishnava point of view about the goal of life, it requires a culture. A culture means how you do things, how you eat, how you sleep, how you talk, how you dress, how you picture the world in your mind. And you can only create that culture in a group. You can say the family is a group, but today the family group is outnumbered by materialistic culture. So therefore you need a much larger group so that the idea of this purpose of life is validated on a daily basis in the mind of the child. And that's why we have a temple like this, because this is the support environment for that point of view, that the goal of life is to develop pure love for God and to express that love through daily acts of devotion. So, to win this battle, and the battle is, the field of the battle, the Kshetra, where that battle is taking place, is definitely today digital technology through internet, smartphones, and so forth. And to win the battle, you have to have a parallel, let's say, a parallel environment that's stronger, more attractive, more fun, more based on real interpersonal relationships rather than virtual interpersonal relationships. And that's why the parents who realize this, they will bring their children regularly to the temple to bond with other children like themselves whose families have come to the conclusion that the real goal of life is developing pure love for God. And so what do children do? Like children will become fascinated by something, like, for example, Harry Potter. So when they become fascinated by Harry Potter, they will learn all about Harry Potter. They'll read the different books, and all of a sudden the imagery in their mind is all the different episodes and pastimes of Harry Potter. Right? So you see, what we're trying to do we're trying to have the child become interested in all the episodes and pastimes of Krishna. But here, someone came up with this fantasy world of Harry Potter, and now the child is involved. Harry Potter is a very, the author made a lot of money by coming up with different episodes of the life of Harry Potter based on magic and supernatural events and so forth. And it has captivated the mind of thousands of kids, or millions of kids. So children are attracted to stories. They're attracted to adventures. They're attracted to bravery and chivalry and things like that. And they see, they see what's called prototypical characters that are paradigms for their behavior. See? So therefore, there's Harry Potter paraphernalia, just like there's ninja paraphernalia. You go to the toy stores and they buy these swords, ninja swords, and then you go to the toy store and they have these costumes like Harry Potter and things like that. The child mind has been seized with some type of image of a hero, and they try and emulate that hero, and then they get the paraphernalia that goes along with it, and you buy it for them. Right? Now, in the 1950s, 60s, it was, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and then it evolved into the ninjas, and now it's evolved into Harry Potter, and then pretty soon it's going to end up being, Kim Kardashian and Miley Cyrus, who are really low-class people. So the need for what you call prototypical hero in a person's life, especially children's life, is very important. Therefore, in the traditional culture in India, that prototypical character was either Ram or Krishna. And the children would organize their life around the pastimes of Ram and Krishna. Right? And then it evolved into these other things, the wrong characters. And then you have a whole subset of this called the gangster rap, the rappers. The rappers have created another culture that you can see is very powerful, because you'll see these high school kids in cars with their windows open, and they have this rap music going on all the time. So the radio, the television, the internet, it is a way of instilling a culture into people's minds. And kids are not prepared for this. They don't know how to handle it. So they'll go with the flow. Wherever the majority is going, they're going to follow. So therefore, for the parents to win the battle, the battle is to instill what the goal of life is in the mind of the child. And that goal of life has to have a picture. That picture is what we're presenting here. This is Krishna, Radha and Krishna together. And their pastimes. Or Sita and Ram together and their pastimes. There's a whole culture that evolves around the personalities of Radha and Krishna and Sita and Ram, or it could be Lakshmi and Narayana. Now, is this more real than the rappers' culture, or the Disney culture, or the movie star culture? That's the question. That's the challenge you have as parents. Can you make that culture real in your house? And so that in the competition it wins over the rappers, the movie stars, the Bollywood, etc., and Disney. Therefore, you need the tools, unless you are convinced first that this is what the goal of life is, pure love for Radha and Krishna, or Sita and Ram, and it should be expressed through constant acts of devotion. You cannot convince your child. If you're confused, if you think, no, the goal of life is to enjoy life, and the goal of religion is to succeed in that material enjoyment, Therefore, we will do Satyanarayana Puja, because that will help us succeed in enjoying this world and being successful materially. Then that's what your kids are going to imbibe, but they'll imbibe it in a different way. They'll take that underlying principle, success in material life, and they'll learn how to do it through computer technology or through selling drugs or whatever they get influenced by. But the overriding theme is enjoy material life. Now, if the overriding theme is to become a pure devotee of Krishna, then they'll imbibe that culture of how to do that. But they have to see how it applies to their practical life. In practical life, in order to be happy, you need peace of mind. In order to have peace of mind, your mind has to be engaged in some positive thing that is satisfying. So, kids get easily tricked to think that you'll get peace of mind by smoking marijuana. And then by smoking marijuana, you'll become happy, and you socialize with a whole culture of other people that smoke marijuana, in which it looks like they're all happy, and they're enjoying success in sense gratification. Or you get peace of mind by being praised all the time because you're number one in the spelling bee, or you're number one in math, or you're number one in dancing, or something that makes you popular. So you see, what is the goal of life and how to achieve it? What usually happens is, if your goal is materialistic, you'll succeed in the beginning, and then there'll be ultimate failure and depression in the end. If it's spiritual, you'll have a difficult time in the beginning, but as you cultivate spiritual principles, you will succeed and achieve uninterrupted happiness and peace of mind. So, therefore, there's a competition between a short-term success and long-term success, or as they say in Sanskrit, shreyas and preyas. There's short-term success and long-term success. Most kids are tricked into short-term success. And the result of that is what begins as ecstasy and ends up as misery is happiness in a mode of passion. And what begins as misery and ends up as ecstasy is happiness in a mode of goodness. So if you create the environment of goodness, sattvic guna in your house, then you can train your kids to gradually master the principles of devotional life. What are those principles? 4 things you shouldn't do, 4 things you should do. Those 4 things you shouldn't do are meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit sex. Those things you should do are regularly chanting Hare Krishna, regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayana, eating only prasadam, food that's been sanctified by offering to Krishna, and engaging in seva, service to the Lord. So this is the underpinning or the foundation of Vedic culture. These 4 things you shouldn't do, 4 things you should do. Right? That's called culture. Culture is what you should do and what you shouldn't do. All right? Now, there are other cultures. They say you should take drugs, you should have illicit sex, you should eat meat, you should play the lottery. Right? So then you have a switch. The things you should do in Vedas, you should do are things you should not do in materialistic culture, and the things you shouldn't do in Vedic culture you should do in materialistic culture. So it's a complete switch. So how can you train a child in the things that you should do and you shouldn't do? The strongest force or power that influences people is love. It's not dictation or ordering kids. It's love. And love is a huge investment. In order to achieve an atmosphere of love in the family, it requires a huge investment by the parents in terms of time, energy, and concentration. It's not something that's artificially produced. Like, let's say, you want to have blue lights in your house. So you just go to Home Depot and buy blue lights. You know, all you need is the money and the installation, and you have blue lights. But to install love in your house on a permanent basis, it's an ongoing thing. Every minute of the day, you have to be focused on that. It's not a one-time deal. You just go to Home Depot, buy blue lights, and install them in the house. Now you have blue light atmosphere in your house. So, unless the parents themselves have developed love for Krishna, and the basis of their relationship, husband and wife, is one of not love of each other's body, but love for Krishna. So that the bond that holds people together, it's either going to be based on the body, or it's going to be based on mutual love for Krishna. So, and then, even in India, people talk about love marriage. What is a love marriage? They have the same thing in America also. It's based on mutual attraction to the body, to the bodies. It's not really based on pure love. And as soon as that mutual attraction breaks down, the relationship breaks down. So, unless both parents have a loving relationship based on their commitment to serving God and their enamorment or absolute attraction to Krishna or Ram or Narayana, they will not be able to instill or develop an environment of love in the house. And you see this when you have mother and father arguing all the time, or having differences of opinion or differences of orientation. Like the wife can say, well, I've come from a family where we do like this, and my husband comes from a family where they do like that. And then when you first get married, you don't notice it, but as time goes on, it becomes very noticeable, and all of a sudden there's a hiatus or a break between the husband and wife in the culture that they're following. Okay? Someone says, well, I come from a Brahmin family, and we do things like this. My husband comes from a low-class Vaishnava family, and they do things like that. We don't agree. I don't agree with that, but I didn't realize it when I got married. So this type of cultural difference becomes very prominent as the years go by. Therefore, unless both parents are acclimated to the transcendental culture as exemplified by the relationship of Ram, Sita and Ram, or Radha and Krishna, or Lakshmi and Narayana, you'll not be able to influence your kids in the right way. It will be impossible. And the kids will notice it. Children are more intelligent than we are, parents, because they realize things through the way you behave with them. They're not academic. They're more emotional, but they're more emotionally, let's say, expert than we are as parents. So the way you behave with them will determine how they evolve from their childhood to maturity. The way to behave with children, first of all, the husband and wife have to come together and decide what is the goal of life. And if they decide that the goal of life is to develop pure love for Radha and Krishna and express that love through devotion, then they create that atmosphere in the house. And then whatever doesn't support that atmosphere, they eliminate in their life. Like, for example, one person joined Krishna consciousness, and years later, after he became a devotee, he spoke about his experience. He said, well, before Krishna consciousness, the one thing I was proud of most in my house was my wine cellar. And I spent about $50,000 building it up. some wines are expensive. So after I began to get introduced to Krishna consciousness, I realized that this wine cellar is something that is illicit. It's one of the things you shouldn't do in Krishna consciousness. And I had to make a major decision in my life. What was more important to me, the wine or Krishna? And when he came to the conclusion that Krishna was more important, he threw away $50,000 worth of wine. He didn't give it away, because giving it away would be inciting other people to drink wine. And then he would have part of the karmic debt for doing that. So he destroyed it. He didn't want to contaminate anyone else with the same contamination that he had. And he gave it up. Why? Because he found something more valuable than the $50,000 worth of wine. And that was his relationship with Krishna. You see? So, these are the type of decisions that have to be made. In other words, what we're saying here is you cannot influence your kids unless you are fully convinced that being a devotee of Krishna is the goal of life. You can't be wishy-washy. Every Sunday, that's the goal of life. But from Monday to Saturday, it's not the goal of life. Then you're not going to be able to convince your child. It's impossible. But you don't, and then even if you're convinced that it's the goal of life, you cannot convince your child unless you create an atmosphere of love in the house. Now, what is an atmosphere of love? It's expressed through the culture. Now, what is the culture? The culture is we go to the Safeway, we walk past the meat department and hold our nose, and we get to the vegetable department. In the vegetable department, we also make a discrimination. We don't buy onion and garlic because you can't offer it to Krishna. But we buy fresh vegetables. And then you have to decide whether you want organic or non-organic. But and then you buy those vegetables, and then milk and butter, unsalted butter, and maybe some olive oil and whatever, and spices and that are no garlic again, no onion, no leeks, and no capers and things like that, because you can't offer them. And you come home and you take a bath and you put on clean clothes and you cook for Krishna, for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna, or Sita and Ram, or Lakshmi Narayana. And you cook with the consciousness that I'm going to cook for the pleasure of the Lord. I'm not cooking for my own pleasure. And you do your best. And spiritual life is continually progressive. So your best means you get better and better at doing it progressively. It's not, you don't put a low bar that, okay, I'll get vegetables in a can and just heat them up. Krishna doesn't accept canned food. Right? So you get better and better at doing this, and because spiritual life is progressive, because love is something that grows, it doesn't stay stagnant. Otherwise, it's not really love. And as it gets better and better, your kids, right from the start of their life, when they're drinking mother's milk, because the mother is only eating prasadam, they're also getting prasadam. Okay. So you see, it's a whole culture. It's how you do things, how you eat, how you sleep, how you think, how you dress, how you see the world. Unless you have imbibed this culture yourself, you cannot transfer it to your kids. In the beginning, the mother is transferring that culture by her milk. So that milk should be sattvic. It should be based on Krishna, pleasing Krishna, right? And even the body of the child should be sattvic. It should have been formed by the prasadam that the mother was eating, not by Chuck E. Cheese burgers and things like that. It has to be based on prasadam, so that the body of the child was already formed by prasadam, because that's all the mother did. And the mind of the child was formed by hearing Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtans. So the example is there of Prahlad Maharaj. When he was in the womb of his mother, he was living in the ashram of Narada Muni. And in that ashram, the mother, Kayadu, was constantly hearing Krishna Katha and eating the remnants of food offered to Krishna Prasad. Therefore, when her son was born, he was already a devotee. He already was trained in Krishna consciousness. He already understood what the goal of life is. He learned it in the womb. So there's prenatal consciousness of children. The mother wasn't watching Bollywood movies and eating, Skittles. She was eating prasadam and hearing katha and hearing Vishnu Sahasranam Stotram, or hearing Hare Krishna mantra and so forth. So the child grew in the womb already Krishna conscious, right from birth. So this is called a culture. What are your daily activities? What do you listen to? What do you think about? In fact, go further back. The conception of the child was also based on Krishna consciousness, because the parents performed the Garbhodhan samskar before conception. Therefore, the mindset of the father and mother was not sensuality at the moment of conception, but it was to invite, to beg Krishna to put a spiritually oriented child into the womb. You see, so this is culture. The samskaras, the Vedic samskaras, represent the culture before birth, at birth, after birth. The samskaras are performed to reorient the mind of people toward the spiritual goal of life. So the Vedic culture is a complete, let's say, environment for raising children that are God conscious. So, the subject of love is the most important thing, because love is the strongest influence in people's lives. And one thing that people are starved of in modern civilization is love. The one thing that they want the most is the one thing that they're starved of, or is the most scarce thing. And it's scarce mainly because of digital technology and all the nonsense that comes through it that goes directly into the mind. Now let's talk about that for a second. In this body there are 9 holes, or we can call them doors. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, a mouth, a anus, and a genital. So those are 9 portals into the body. Our personality is formed by what we let in those 9 portals. So, if we let in nonsensical stuff or illicit things, in other words, you have a mind and you have an intelligence and you have senses. The senses are knowledge-gathering instruments. The mind is the hard disk on which all that information comes in and is stored. Right? The mind receives all that information and then it stores it. But the intelligence is the discerning factor by which you decide this is good, this is bad. This is something I will do, this is something I will not do. So, if the intelligence is not ruling over the mind and the senses, you are in a car without a steering wheel, but your foot is down right to the pedal is on the metal. In other words, you're accelerating as fast as you can, but you don't have a steering wheel. So what's going to happen to you? You're going to have a crash. Or it's like a chariot in which there are no reins. The horses are just running. So you're going to have an accident. So the whole purpose is of yoga. Yoga means connecting to Krishna or connecting to God. The whole purpose of it is to bring the mind under the control of spiritual intelligence. That's the purpose of yoga, by which you connect to Krishna all the time, because you don't let the mind wander, and then the mind does not get falsely influenced by the senses. The senses are indiscriminately receiving knowledge from the world by perceiving things. And then the mind is receiving it and then storing it. But the intelligence gives value or rejects things. But if your intelligence is not working properly, then the mind will emotionally accept and reject things based on sense gratification. Therefore, this is what happens to 99.9% of kids. They accept and reject things based on their personal selfish goals. Now you see that. Let's say, like in our temple, we have twins. One family have twin boys. Those twin boys are fighting all day long on possessing things. Like if one kid gets one thing and the other kid doesn't, there's a fight. If one kid gets the same thing, but one thing looks a little better than the other, they fight. You see? And they're brothers. Is that right? Have you seen that? Yeah. So, right from the start, the child is born with a karmic debt. Especially in families where they don't perform the Garbhodhan samskar before birth. And so, you're not only dealing with the influences that your child is going to have in this life, you're dealing with the influences the child is bringing from a previous life. Right? So, unless there's a very powerful culture of Krishna consciousness right from the beginning, you're going to lose the battle. Now, those influences are gradually revealed to the child as it grows. Right from the beginning, they have a sense of possessiveness, and then when they get to puberty, all the unfinished desires from their previous life awaken, and the child is bombarded with all kinds of attractions and desires. They don't even know where it comes from. It's coming from their previous life. And therefore, puberty is a very, very sensitive time in a child's life because many influences arise, not only from the outside world, but from inside, from previous life. And you have to have a way of dealing with it. Therefore, again, the samskaras are extremely important in the development of a person, because those samskaras are rites of passage from one stage of life to another. And the most important samskara is what you call the Upanayanam samskara. Now today, Upanayanam has lost its significance in India. It's just a ritual. The kids don't understand it. Parents don't understand it. They just know, well, my father told me I have to do it for my kid, or my grandfather said we should do it, so we'll do it. It's traditional in family. But no, Upanayanam, it has a very deep meaning. It's not simply a little ritual. You pay a Brahmin to come and do Upanayanam and put a string on your kid's neck. It's not that. It is exactly what Arjuna did in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Sisyasteham sadimam tvam prapanam. He decided to surrender to Krishna and be instructed by Krishna. And what is the goal of life? That is Upanayanam. And that's the real meaning of it. And it's a very serious decision. And they have the same thing in Christianity. It's called baptism. So baptism means that you're washed of your sins from previous life and in this life, and you begin a new life based on following Jesus. Baptism. So Upanayanam is the same thing, but it has even deeper meaning. And not only you're washed of your sins, but you make a vow not to sin in the future by following the Vedic principles of life. So it's the most important decision you can make in your life. And therefore, in the Catholic Church, or in many churches, they try and baptize the kids right at birth. But in other traditions, like the Jewish tradition, where they have the bar mitzvah, it's not until the child reaches puberty. And before, they train the child in what the purpose of life is. so that when they go through the ceremony of the bar mitzvah, they've already committed to following this the rest of their life. So, therefore, you have Upanayanam in India is the same thing. It doesn't happen till, it should not happen until the child grows to the point, like after puberty, like between the ages of 12 to 20, where they make a decision to follow the Vedic path seriously, and by having a commitment to a guru and gurus, Siksha Diksha gurus, and always doing what Arjuna did, Karishye Vachanam Tava. From this point on, Krishna, I will only do what you tell me to do. I'm not going to do anything that violates your instructions. So, to create such a culture in your house, in your home, requires a lot of support and ongoing, continual education. It's just like, if you're a computer technician and you learned, let's say, JavaScript, but then you join a company in which they do JavaScript for programming, and then you want to change your job in the other company to do C# or C++. So then you have to learn another language now, right? So it's ongoing education. If you want to stay on a career path, and if you want to lose your job permanently, you refuse to get any more education, and then when that computing language goes completely out of style, you lose a job. Right? So to follow the Vedic path requires ongoing, continual education, because Maya will present an innumerable number of ways to attract the mind of your child or you, and therefore to be able to withstand that onslaught, you have to have continual, ongoing education. And that, therefore, the Vedic principles are based on regulative principles of life. Avoiding certain things and doing certain things every day, so that ongoing education is effective. Okay, so this is an introduction to this, topic. And just like the Vedic path, this topic requires ongoing education. It's not one stop, one shot, and it's finished. Why? Because our diseases we easily forget. Because it goes in one ear and comes out the other ear. So we need constant reminding of what the goal of life is and how to achieve it and how to create the culture to achieve it on a continual basis in our house, in our home, in our mind, in the minds of our children. So, again, we'll repeat this, and then this is the next seminar. Love is the strongest force in this world. Just like one time a lady told her husband, either you love me or you love smoking cigarettes. Take your pick. Because her husband was always smoking. And he said, I'll take the cigarette. She said, okay, then we'll separate. So it always comes down to something like that. Ultimately, a wife will say, either you love me or you love this other thing. You make your choice, right? If it's the other thing, okay, you go there, because we can't live together anymore. So, and it's the same with the children. Either they love you and your culture, or they love something else, and then you'll part your ways because of that. So love is the most powerful force in the world. It's stronger than guns. People like the early Christians, they were willing to be torn apart by lions in the Colosseum because they loved Jesus so much. They had a choice. Either give up your Christianity or we'll put you into the arena of the Colosseum. I don't know, has anyone ever gone to Rome and seen the Colosseum? Anyone ever go to Rome here? No? Okay, well, Colosseum is right in the center of Rome. It's this big stadium that was built by the Romans over 2,000 years ago, and it was for entertainment. It was their television. So they would have live fighting between gladiators. Gladiators were, very powerful men, and every day they would fight. One would have to die. And then the audience, the 5 or 10,000 people that would come every day, they would be cheering on one or the other. And then when one gladiator had the other one subdued, then he would look at the audience, and if more people said kill him, he would kill him right in front of them, and the blood would gush out, and people would be cheering. Then the people want diversity. Actually, it's perversity. So then they switched to bringing in Christians, who they considered were like a disease in their culture, right? And then they would give the Christians a choice: either you stop Christianity, or we'll put you into the ring with wild animals, lions and bears and tigers. And what they would do, they would starve the animals, so they'd be really hungry. And then they put the Christians inside the arena, and then they let the animals loose. And then they would, these animals, once they eat, then they're not interested in killing anybody or eating anyone. Then would go back into their cages. They were trained to be starved, come out, kill somebody, eat them, and then go back into their cage. Right? So the Christians were put into the Colosseum, and they would be killed, or they would have to renounce their religion. So they had to make a decision: what's more important, my love of Jesus, or my own, selfish material life? So love is the most powerful force. So that'll be our next seminar. So are there any questions or comments you would like to make? Let me ask you a question. Was this relevant to you, what we just discussed? Huh? Okay. Yes? That won't work. I'll tell you right now. That won't work. Yeah. No, you have to have selective use of digital media. Right. Like we have the Little Krishna film, and the culture will demand more diversity. Just like people got tired of seeing gladiators killing gladiators, then they wanted to see something different. So then they brought in the Christians and the tigers, right? And they kept bringing new things in. It was the same theme. Somebody gets killed and blood flies all over the place and people are cheering, right? So you have to use selective use of the digital media. And whatever you select has to be better than the other stuff, right? But also it has to be restricted in this sense, that in the house and in your family life, you do things in real life that are more fun, that are more attractive than what they see on the digital media. All right, that's where the temple comes in, and you see we do so many different activities here, so the kids bond with each other and they bond with the family members, and like we have family dancing bonding, right? And we have all kinds of programs, how to decorate cupcakes and Vedic mathematics and this thing and that thing. So the problem is that because oftentimes both parents are working, their quality time with the children is very minimal. And there's a competition between relaxing after working a whole week and spending, making the effort to spend time with the kids, right? So you see, your children are, if they go to public school especially, they are maximum influenced by the environment of the public school and minimally influenced by the environment in the house. And then if you give them a computer, they shut their bedroom door and they don't even talk to you. So then it's even worse in the house, right? So therefore, there has to be a culture in the house supported by the culture in the temple, and that's why we have a school, supported by the culture in the school that we have, that keeps the kids entertained, learning good things, and not being attracted to the other culture. All right? You need a whole network of things that support what? The goal of life is to develop pure love for Krishna and express it through devotion. So you minimize the digital experiences, first of all, by being selective, and secondly, by creating a culture in which the child is having more fun in the spiritual environment than in the other environment. More fun, more learning, more skills. I mean, the other thing is, children should develop skills, right? So, there and there's a principle in Krishna consciousness called dovetailing. So let's say computer robotics is a big thing. So we take computer robotics and teach it to the kids and show them how to engage it in Krishna's service. We don't say, no, don't learn this. This is nonsense. No, we dovetail it. Dovetailing means you bring it into Krishna consciousness and you Krishnaize it. You don't sanitize it. You Krishnaize it. Right? Dovetailing is a word from carpentry. Before they used nails and screws, they used male and female joints made of wood. Like the female thing is something you insert into, and the male thing is something you insert into the female groove. And they used to build things without nails and screws by those inserts. So you have a male and female. You have a female component, a male component that inserts into it, and then it's called dovetailing. So in the same way, we'll take something and we dovetail it into Krishna consciousness. In other words, we Krishnaize it. So it could be pizza. So instead of pizza with anchovies and salami, it's pizza with bell peppers and olives. Right? It's still a pizza. Right? The kids are still getting pizza, but it's not pizza with things that we can't offer to Krishna. Or let's say it's a wrap. Well, the wrap or burrito. So it's a burrito that's vegetarian rather than a meat burrito. Say. So you have to learn the art of dovetailing things. Just like one lady was telling me, my kids only eat junk food. If I give them dal, rice, sabji, they don't want it. I said, okay, then learn how to make good junk food that you can offer to Krishna. And she said, how do you do that? I said, well, we were teaching that. Every week we have cooking lessons to teach you how to do that. Okay, so children want to have fun. And the trick is, you give them learning through fun. And the overriding thing is love, by which there's bonding. Like, if your children love you, then they will not do something that you told them not to do. And if they don't love you, they will do something that you told them not to do. So unless you have love, you cannot teach your children to love. You can't give something that you don't have. Any other questions or comments? Well, see, the way you ask the question points to what's not happening in the house that would influence them. And you and your husband should sit down at least half an hour every day. You know, you have a little short arti ceremony, and you read. But it's not just reading; it's emotional involvement in the reading. Right? You have to make the word come out in livable language, that you actually live in the words. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a poetry reading. Poetry readings are usually not very well attended. It's only people who are really interested in it, because they can live in the words. They can experience through the words the poetry. Right? So in the same way, it's an art of being able to live in the words. See, before there was television, before there was radio, right, what was there? People would live in the words. Like there was Hari Katha in South India, right? What's Hari Katha? Basically, the people are living in the words. They hear these descriptions in poetry, right? And the poetry is sung, right? And they sing along with it. You know, the singer sings, and then the people repeat. And it's not a performance. They're all living in the words. The words become pictures in their minds, and they cherish those pictures that they got through the words. Right? So that's called what do you call dynamic reading. And undynamic reading is you tell your child, go in your room and read Krishna book. that's not only is boring, but it doesn't make any sense. You have to have dynamic reading, where the words actually jump out of the book and they become a picture in the mind. And then you can taste the picture, you can live in that picture. Right? So, but you can't instill that in the mind of the child unless you're actually experiencing it yourself. In other words, the highlight of the day is when you sit down like a family and you read together a Krishna book. That's the highlight of it. And all day long you're thinking, I can't wait till this happens. Right? So you make it an experience that is so enthralling that you can't live without it. You know, and the kids will say, Mommy, when are we going to sit down? When are you going to tell me the stories? You know, I said, well, I'm too tired tonight. You know, we'll do it tomorrow night. And tomorrow night, I'm too busy. We'll do it next week. And well, when we go to the temple, you'll hear something. You know, and so, you know, it's got to be part of your culture, something that you do on a daily basis, and it's got to be dynamic. It can't be just read. Just read, you don't understand anything. You have to make it. You know, you have to be living in the words themselves. You know. So there's one thing done mechanically, and there's another thing done with love, and you're emotionally involved in it, invested in it. Unless you are like that, you cannot instill that in your children, and you can't expect someone else to do it. You have to do it. Right? And, you know, it might not be dynamic and emotionally surcharged the first day, but you keep repeating it day after day as part. It's like the Upanayanam. Upanayanam is part of the Vedic lifestyle. Whether people understand it or don't understand it, they still do it until one day they decide not to do it. Right? So. This is part of the Vedic lifestyle. It's called Katha. That every day there should be a half an hour or an hour, depending on how enthusiastically you do it, of Katha in the house. Part of your lifestyle. Now the television has undermined that, and digital technology has undermined the living Katha, the dynamic Katha. But previously, especially in wintertime in cold countries, people would live around the fireplace or the stove, wood stove, and they had these, they had these kitchen stoves that cook food also, So that was the warmest place in the house. So at night, they would sit around it, and then the parents and grandparents would tell stories. Usually, in India, stories about, Ram, and Krishna, and in other countries, other stories. And those stories were teaching stories, and they were exciting and and the elders would say it in dramatic ways, and it would entertain the kids, and at the same time they would learn. You see, that was the culture. That was, and the kids would be waiting for it all day long. They say, "I can't wait till Grandpa tells us another story tonight," because all the stories are great, And so a whole culture of these stories built up over time. Now, all those stories, there are hundreds and thousands of stories like that in the Mahabharata, and the whole Ramayana is a story, right? But it's not just a fairy tale; it's real, and it has deep meaning. But and people live in that Ramayana, or they live in the bhava, the emotional state of that Ramayana or Mahabharata, and all the values of Vedic life is embedded in those stories, and that's what educates a child. A child is not educated by doing homework. A child is educated by these stories of the pastimes of the Lord. That's how they become. That's how Krishna or Ram becomes the hero in their life that they try and follow. Instead of Harry Potter, it's Lord Ram. But you have to make that culture alive in your house, and it's a daily thing. Yeah. So, you have to make it part of your schedule. Just like you schedule eating, you have to also schedule katha. But the katha has to be live, dynamic katha, not let's say, flat, boring reading. You have to make the words jump out of the page into the mind of the child. And that depends on your enthusiasm. If you're not enthusiastic, they're not going to be enthusiastic. Yeah. Okay, and no more questions. Yes. Okay, so these are good questions. See, in the, let's say we're just starting this establishment of Vedic culture, right? So but we're going to bring in a lot of things now that are supplemental to, or let's say, will dovetail the child from the outside toys to the Krishna conscious toys. Just like there's a little Krishna film, there are a whole bunch of things we're going to bring in now from traditional villages in India that engage the kids. Instead of those Toys R Us toys made in China, they're Krishna conscious toys, just as appealing, just as fun as the other ones. Okay? It depends also on the demands of the parents. See, there's always supply and demand, right? That's the way business grows, through demand first and then supply. The businessmen supply what the demand is. So if the demand is, as parents, we need storybooks, we need educational books, we need toys, we need this, we need films, we need, this and that. And so we try and present some of that stuff here, but it's not elaborate enough. So as the demand grows, so the supply grows, right? So how do you build up the demand? Well, by having seminars like this, where the demand, you suddenly realize, well, if we had more of these other toys, then we would buy these toys instead of getting them the other toys, right? So you build up the demand by education. So we're educating right now. We have to build up an alternate culture, and with all the instruments necessary to make it more attractive than the sculpture. Okay. And we're researching now. My daughter is going to India. It's going to spend a month there, going around different villages in Orissa, for example, where they make things like this. And we're just going to bring them back. And little by little, also today we contacted someone on the internet in South India, in Andhra, that makes, fantastic paper mache things. They're very, very well done, as good as the Chinese stuff. So, we're getting into this in a more significant, deeper way now than before, because the congregation is growing, the number of kids are increasing. So we need to get all the paraphernalia necessary to keep their minds focused on Krishna. Okay, so, but you can express, like, here's Tati Prabhu. You can tell him, Prabhu, we need more toys for our kids. All right, so there's the demand, Prabhu. Now you have to do your homework and find them. Okay, unless if there's no forum of discussion like this, nothing is going to happen. But there is a need, right? You just expressed there's a need. So once you define the need, or put your finger on the need, then Tati will go to work and find the supply. Hare Krishna. Okay, and we'll stop there, and there'll be future seminars on this subject. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada.
이게 왜 또 우리가 나겠습니다. 그 알아보니 그 지나가